Hello, students. So let's maybe use one of those functions that we got from our basic operators. From operator import neg. And I want to use this in a new way. I want to introduce the map function. So map is a built-in function, and what it does is it runs an iterable through a map. So if you give it anything that we can take things out of, it's going to put all those things through a map and give me the new object. So let's try it. Let's try mapping 1, 2, and 3 through the negative operator. And you see that what this returns is like a generator. It gets ready to do it. It's ready to do it as soon as I need it to. It doesn't do it yet. So if I tell it, hey, I need this now because I need to see the list, or if I need this because I need to know the sum of those values, then it'll finally grab those values out. And this is of course useful if you have something that has like millions of values in your iterable. You might not want it to map them all at once. You might want to not store everything in memory at the same time. So that's why it does that. Lazy evaluation. Okay, let's look at another example. Let's, I don't know, return to our old friend, the collots function. That one's easy to write. So what we're going to do is we're going to return 3n plus 1 if n mod 2 is odd, which I could just write if n mod 2 because 0 evaluates as false and 1 evaluates as true, else n over 2. And if I wanted to say apply this collots function to an entire list, I could do that using the map function. So I could say, hey, let's map collots, and I give it some random, you could have repeats. And of course, I can't see what this is yet, but if I wanted to get the list of that, now I can see what's happening here. And as you can see, it's taking 5, 2, 3 times 5 plus 1, 3, 2, 3 times 3 plus 1. The 8 here just turns into a 4 because that's where we divide by 2. Now, I've often talked about comprehensions as having an iterable, a map part, and a filter part, right? The map's on the left, the filter's on the right. And this is like just taking that map and the iterable. So it's very similar to a comprehension. For example, if I wanted to get the negatives of 1, 2, 3, I could have done this as a comprehension where I say, hey, minus I for I in 1, 2, 3. And what this does now is it takes these elements in the iterable, and before it puts it in the list, it runs it through the map. So this map function is doing something very similar to that. Of course, I don't have to just work with lists of numbers. Let's say I wanted to, I don't know, play with something else. So let's maybe take, I don't know, we have to write a new function. Let's do last letter. So I create a function that if I give it a word, it returns the last letter. So I could do this just by indexing -1. And now let me try saying, hey, I want to map using last letter. And I'll give it some words. It wouldn't have affected anything if we're grabbing the last letters. But okay, and then I do this. And of course, if I need to see what this is, then if I want to see what this is right away, I could always take a list here. And I'll end that there. And I get end, E-N-D, because the end of the words in Alice in Wonderland just happens to be end. Okay, let's get some help with the map function. Map is built in, so Python should recognize when I type help map. And it is, and I have map, it is recognized. I have map a function, that's what we've been doing. Iterable, variables. So this is telling me that maybe I could have more than one thing. So how would that work? Well, what map's going to do if I have more than one iterable? Well, that's for if I have functions that take in more than one argument. So let's, from operator, import add. Now let's do subtract. So let me try, and I'll ask for the list right away this time. Let me try applying the sub function to 1, 2, 3, and 6, 7, 8. And as you see, what it's doing is now if you give it more than one iterable, but you give it a function that takes in more than one value, it can deal with it. Because what it's doing is it's taking the first values here from the iterables, just like if it was a single, a function that takes in a single value, it would take the first value. Well, now if it's a function that takes in two values, it takes the first values from those two iterables. And then it applies the function which is subtraction. So it gives me 1 minus 6 or minus 5. And so on for 2 and 7 and 3 and 8. Now if I were to try this with yet another iterable, what would happen? 9, 10, 11. Well, now I'm in trouble, right? Because it's trying to use a 1, a 6, and a 9 in subtract. But if I create a function that does take in 3 variables, and subtraction's a little weird, but I don't know, let me just do add 3. So ABC, so this is going to be a function that adds 3 things together, return a plus b plus 3. And now I put this through map. Actually, I'll just grab this with my add 3. And that's going to work nicely because I have the same number of iterables as the number of arguments that this function takes in. So as long as you have a function, if you have a function with multiple arguments, as long as you have enough containers to run the map, it's going to work and it's going to give you the right results. So that's an introduction to the map function, and sort of nice that the help function sort of revealed that for us right there.